The Belgian Grand Prix has brought some significant upgrades, and I am here to bring you all of them. The background might be different. I'm not in my usual spot. I'm actually out of power, which is quite great, but I gotta get this video to you guys, and there is a lot to talk about. Firstly, let's talk about the rear wings that are being brought to Belgium. This is always a more low downforce type of track. Now, yes, there are high speed and medium speed corners which require downforce, but not a lot of it. Now, clearly, if you're looking at this picture, you have the AlphaTauri, Haas, Williams, and McLaren. And in this picture, it's clear to me that the McLaren has the biggest, most loaded rear wing. And I think this is because of their rear downforce. It just has not been great in this year. They have not brought a new rear wing just yet. I want to see what they can do when they actually bring a new rear wing. And with the spec that they have right now, they will be lacking in probably sectors 1 and 3. But Sector 2 is going to be a very strong sector for the McLaren, so I expect them to be very strong, at least in that area of it. Williams should also be pretty strong on this track. I expect them to perform very highly here as well. The other 4 rear wings brought to this car is obviously Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston Martin. And out of all of these, it's actually Red Bull that has the most loaded. There is the new Mercedes wing. I will put up a bigger picture of it after. Aston Martin also has a new rear wing clearly in this picture. I'll talk about that one after as well. And we have the Ferrari rear wing, which they have brought also to Baku. It is the same one. That was a very low loaded rear wing, but hey, put them on pole in Baku. It's a completely different track though. So let's see how they perform here. This is high speed corners. Baku was more low speed and straights. So this is high speed, medium speed and straights. So I do not think the Ferrari will perform as much here. And if you actually look at the gurneys on all of these rear wings, Aston Martin has no gurney, so they are going for a completely low downforce rear wing, but it is also a new spec. It's not something that they have brought yet. There are a couple extra features that I want to talk about. Same with Mercedes. Mercedes have a pretty Monza style type wing, so we'll talk about that as well. To briefly mention also the rear of this McLaren. I mean, the actual beam wing itself is very similar to what Ferrari brought some other races ago, with its upper flap of the beam wing being very similar to that style. That's probably for some more rear downforce, but also to give them that more straight line speed. It looks unique, and I just wanted to briefly mention it. Here is the new Aston Martin rear wing, the first rear wing that I want to talk about. This is a new rear wing that they have brought. Now, they had a pretty low loaded rear wing in Baku and actually performed very strongly there still on their tires. Now, there have been reports coming out talking about the rear actually being a lot weaker since they've brought this real update to the car that's kind of regressed them. So let's see, they have been better in straight line speed. I don't know about high speed, they've been kind of iffy on that. Every team has kind of been almost even except for Red Bull there. I mean, McLaren also being higher, but they're not too far off. A couple of updates should help them. There is a supposed floor coming here too. Mike Crack has reported it. There is a floor coming, but it is not on the car yet. And there's no analysis that I can really make of it right now and really show you the pictures of, because there isn't any pictures showing us. That might come tomorrow into the practice, or it'll be loaded onto the car on a time that we're not going to be able to see it. Full images of the car are out, and there still is no picture of the actual floor itself, so there isn't really much to discuss upon that right now. But as for the rear wing, low downforce, it does look like it's going to improve upon some certain things. They still have that back edge part, which we'll see in the Mercedes car, does not have. So let's go into the Mercedes rear wing. Here is the new Mercedes rear wing. Now, this is a very low loaded rear wing. It is very Monza-esque style. And if you look at it, it's very flat to ground. Now, I mean, Spa is the type of track that this will be a good rear wing for. I mean, last year, Aston Martin actually tested their Monza wing on Spa, because the track is, you're able to run a very low downforce wing if you have enough grip on the front of your car. And the Mercedes car is pretty solid on its front. And with the Sidepod updates that we are going to talk about in a little bit that are very, very profound, I'll mention exactly how this rear wing and side pod update kind of goes together. They have kind of brought a whole entire package. This was the big package I think we were supposed to see in Silverstone, but we did not end up seeing. Just remember, the key to this car and what has always been lacking in this car has been rear downforce. So you'll see how this rear wing and side pods really match up, and kind of the things that I've been able to pick up from so for now. Let's talk about a couple of other things before we get into the biggest part of this video, which is the side pod upgrades. Here's another front wing. I mean, we should just call them front wing Alpine front wing team, F1 team. I don't even know. I can't even think of a name for them. It is always a different front wing with some different configurations on it, but they are also bringing a floor that I mentioned. it'll be a significant upgrade for them, but it is not yet arrived. We have no pictures of this significant upgrade, so I cannot really go into detail about the Alpine upgrades as of yet, but this is the front wing that they're having here, and yet again, a different spec for it. Here's another angle on that low downforce Aston Martin wing that I wanted to show you. Now, we've seen the side of this rear wing before. This was brought to them in the very beginning of the season, but it's a little more profound on the side now. I think it's to give them more downforce on that wing, which isn't resulting in less DRS efficiency, or I guess low downforce from the top. So it does seem a little bit more profound and more out now, but still following the same philosophy they've been following. They've had a strong DRS efficiency, they just have not been that fast in a straight line throughout the season, but the last couple of races have actually been pretty solid. And I also wanted to talk about this Mercedes rear wing one more time before we get into the huge upgrades of it. With Baku and Belgium, these are the differences that you can see. It shows you that it's a clearly different rear wing. It is a very Monza-esque style, in my opinion, with the upper plane, lower angle of attack, shallower spoon. There's actually a gurney flap on here to add a little bit more downforce. It wasn't on the past one. And lower plane, less camber. This is really just resulting in a car. Now, will the DRS efficiency be that great there? I'm not too certain, but they will be pretty fast in a straight line without the DRS, and sometimes that can be the key in certain races. And the Mercedes car was actually pretty quick without the DRS in most races that we've had so far this year. We're about to go into the side pod upgrades, and I'm going to go really into depth about these, and I just wanted to say thank you all so much for the support. We are so close to 7,000, and I genuinely love you guys for supporting the channel that you do. It means the world for me, and I really do mean that when I say that. So to anybody that's not subscribed, please do hit that notification bell, hit that like. Let's get into these big upgrades. I do these every Thursday before the Grand Prix, and I know that you guys enjoy these videos, so hit that subscribe and hit the notification so you can get these right away. Let's go into the Mercedes side pods that have came. Now these are, here they are. These are definitely different to what I've been expecting from Mercedes, but there's a lot of things that we can point out from here to see where the differences are to other teams. Now, for Red Bull, their side pods they have that undercut, it's more profound, but they don't have anything like this. No other team really has this, and I'm gonna tell you why they've done it. Will this be revolutionary? I hope this really helps the car, but it does seem to be helping in the spots that it needs to be for Mercedes. I know why they've done this. They've done this almost indent into its side pod, and the emphasis so it can go more into that rear part of the car. This is to trap more air to go into the rear part of the real base of the car and hit that bottom floor even more, to emphasize giving them more rear grip. We know that throughout the season they have been very poor on their rear grip, and it has resulted in them actually losing their tires quicker, not being able to stand on their tires for longer and make more consistent laps. Qualifying has resulted badly from that. They have not been able to have the stability in the car, the balance, calling it the Diva 2.0. These upgrades look to really take out that disadvantage that they have in their rear. Hence why they added that indent into its side pod to bring the airflow more slower to its rear to give it more of its stability. And I can expect even a couple of revisions on the floor edge to really encompass this new upgrade that they have going with its rear wing. But because of it being a less loaded rear wing, they want to bring more to their back of their car. And now I think they'll actually be able to run a more or less loaded rear wing. They always have to run a bigger rear wing, and that has been a big weakness of theirs for a long period of time since really the 2023 season has started. So being able to bring a less loaded rear wing with a different style of side pod, but also encompassing the air, kind of like how the rear wing has been doing, this is an upgrade that I think could significantly help them. Do I think it's going to put them above Red Bull? Absolutely not, but they've been slowly making progress, steps and steps and steps, really just going into the season. Here, I actually put all the images together just to show you how this would look like. So here is the inlet to the side pod, which is a little bit more circular, not as squared off, but still done in a fashion to where I think this actually works better to what they had before. It gives them a little bit more of an undercut than to what it was before. And the actual side pod itself kind of has that little indent in the beginning like Ferrari does if you're looking at it from this side. So a couple of things definitely to note here. It's still going to have that odd look of being a smaller side pod because of the regulations and not being able to move up their side pod as much because of what they've done before with their no side pod design. So it still has a couple of awkward things to it, but this definitely looks like it's going to be a step in some type of direction for Mercedes. Now, obviously we won't get the full entire in-depth analysis of it in the race, but This should bring a lot more rear stability to the car. It just hopefully does not bring too much drag to the car, but obviously it's been in the wind tunnel. They found a lot of time. This will be a significant step in the right direction. I think so for the Mercedes squad. It's a pretty big upgrade. I gotta emphasize going with the rear wing, the side pod, and really that side pod indent on the side. It looks very entertaining, and I think from the top, it's gonna have that emphasis of almost water slide look, which they've kind of already had anyway, so that's why I didn't really focus on the top of the car. But from the side, this is definitely a different type of style to any other team, and I would really love to see what kind of performance will be brought out of this car, especially going into the more rear-oriented tracks, because Spa is pretty front-limited, and you don't really need rear for many spots, except for one of the last corners going into the straight, going into the first corner. So otherwise, this should bring performance to the Mercedes car, and I'm excited to see what they can pull off here. And for any other team, bring in upgrades. Let's see if anybody can compete with Red Bull. It'll be tough. I think they're going to run away with it, and Max might be ahead by a whole entire lap on the whole grid. Let me know your thoughts down below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.